NATO is fighting this war with Russia as a NATO partner and not as a NATO member, and that difference is critical. Membership would invoke Article 5 of the NATO Convention, under which an attack on any one member is considered an attack on all, and all are bound jointly to respond to this attack and to respond militarily. And that would create a whole different scenario were Ukraine to be a NATO member. It would mean US soldiers on the front lines in eastern Ukraine facing up to the Russians. It would mean American and French and British aircraft in the skies confronting Russian aircraft directly in aerial combat. That would certainly may have the makings of a new world war, and with a possible and even likely nuclear spillover in such a situation that everyone clearly wants to avoid. The reason that NATO is not in a rush to get Ukraine into its membership formally, even if Ukraine seeks that very much, is that NATO does not consider it quite necessary. NATO has armed Ukraine and armed it with its best, and that is turning out to be more than effective. Russian tanks have been destroyed in thousands, Russian aircraft have been cleared from the skies. Ukrainian troops have made advances in Kharkiv and now in south in Kherson. This has been considerable success on the ground. The Ukrainian forces appear to be winning so far and reclaiming a lot of lost ground to the Russians. And at the moment, given the defensive aims of Ukraine, there is no apparent need that is urgent, as NATO sees it, to get Ukraine into its fold formally. By way of boots on the ground, there are enough that are Ukrainian. Ukraine has an adult population of about 20 million or so, and with conscription, that's a lot of people to go into a battlefield should Ukraine want to go that far. And so far, we've had a very strong response just from volunteers within Ukraine to go and fight out on the front. So the boots on the ground are Ukrainian. They're there and they're best because they're Ukrainian, given also the nature of the war, which is often street to street, area to area, where Ukrainians know the ground well and that they are supplied well. In that scenario, a US force or a NATO force may not even be quite as effective as Ukrainian troops on the front line. But there is also a reason to stop short politically for NATO. Zelensky's declared aim is to reclaim Crimea. That is not likely to happen in a hurry, given even the successes that Ukrainians have experienced now and fought for on the ground. Crimea is well defended by the Russians. The Russians have not quite been erased. They are on the back foot, but they are not out of this yet. They are defending themselves well where they are entrenched. And while the NATO support has gone so far as defending Ukraine, it may not wish to go and may not quite be able to go as far as leading Ukraine into an offensive into well-entrenched Russian areas. So a defensive support with a limited aim and with equipment and armament supplied to Ukraine, but sort of stopping short of getting forces into the ground, is going to be the NATO aim for some time to come. There is political reluctance even within NATO countries on going any further, and everyone has memories of Afghanistan and the NATO pullout from Afghanistan. The Iraq war remains a dubious achievement, and not forgetting, of course, Vietnam. We've had also very clear indications from Biden that the US is not about to be drawn into another conflict in another place in a great hurry. Therefore, it is strategically and economically sensible for NATO to continue to support Ukraine and even to an extent use the war as a testing ground for its armament rather than step into that war directly.